Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Justine Thomas.
And my name's Gareth Thomas, and this is the T word.
Yay! So, Gareth, how are you? How's your week been?
It's been all right. I'm a little bit itchy, but other than that, itching to get started this week. Itching to know what you
Yes,
want to talk about. What's been grinding your gears this week, Justine?
just about everything. Well, there's the whole Rachel Reeves speech and the whole debacle around. Well, I don't even know what the point of that speech was anyway. So, yeah, what's going on with the economy? Obviously, the big ticket item has got to be David Lammy and the escapee prisoners. So, we need to talk about that. And of course, today is Remembrance Sunday and the shocking interview that Alec Penston gave, the 100-year-old war veteran, who said that basically fighting for Britain wasn't worth it and that his colleagues wouldn't recognise the Britain of today. So, yeah, there things on my list. But what do you want to talk about? You go first.
So yeah, Lenny Henry's been in the news. Obviously, totally coincidence. He's writing a book, but apparently he seems to believe that the UK should be paying reparations for slavery. I'm not quite sure what you think about that. I mean, my personal opinion is I don't think that we should be paying any reparations. I'm not quite sure what reparations is about, if I'm honest. I mean, what's your take on the whole reparations debate?
Well, reparations surely are just they're seen as a financial way to right some historic financial wrong, but maybe a sort of moral wrong. But ultimately, how can anybody today be held accountable for the actions of people hundreds of years ago when the victims of those actions are also not alive today? So, in terms of colonial reparations, we're talking about an environment and societies that existed many, many years ago. None of those people are here anymore. So, I'm struggling to understand in terms of the moral sense of the word. Surely there's got to be a statute of limitations on when we can be held accountable for people who've been morally offended by something that took place. But I suppose people from those nations have an argument to say, well, because of the slave trade, for example, the those countries were sort of suffered under the slave trade, and therefore there should be some kind of financial remuneration. I mean, I'm sure there's another side of the argument that says that without colonialism, some of the countries in question might not be as advanced as they are and may not have had the sort of inward investment that they've had over the last 100 years, for example. Now, I don't think that excuses what happened with regards to the slave trade, but the British actually abolished the slave trade. So they were leaders in the abolitionist movement. So, yeah, I don't think the claims for reparations are very credible. I don't think they're very fair. I certainly don't see why I should be paying, for example, maybe higher tax um, to pay people in another country who were not living and have no memory of the things that they're talking about that they need reparations for. What do you think?
Well, it's just generational discrimination, isn't it? I mean, my main question would be: is who are you paying the reparations to? So, are you just who is it that you're? Is it just some people that have got documented proof that an ancestor of theirs was a slave? Are you going to play? Are you going to pay reparation? Are you going to make black slave owners and the descendants of the black slave owners pay reparations? Because there were black slave owners. Are you
Well,
going to
didn't
make?
most of the black slaves came from Africa and were they not black
Well, yeah,
slavers?
most of the slaves that were taken to the United States or to the West were sold by African tribes to the Europeans for them to transport. I mean, don't forget, obviously UK played its part, but our biggest, well, my interpretation is the biggest role that we played was transporting them. You know, the UK wasn't full of slaves. I mean, a lot of people
There were
who
never any slaves. There were never
I don't
any
think they were, not in
slaves
the
in the
UK.
sense of what we're talking about in this context. I mean, obviously, we have modern day slavery, blah, blah, blah. But in terms of this particular issue,
Well,
there
there's more
were no
slaves now
slaves
than there
in
were back
Britain.
then, apparently. I mean, in
Yeah.
modern slavery, there's more slaves now. But I mean, the UK, obviously, territory that was owned by the UK that had sugar plantations and stuff like that had slaves, but there were no slaves really in the UK. But if you were going to pay reparations to Lenny Henry, for example, I mean, his parents came over to the UK in the 1970s, and Lenny Henry's kids will probably have just as many opportunities to achieve in this country than any white person is going to have in the current climate. I mean, if you look at the most disadvantaged people in the UK at the moment, it's working class white teenage boys. So, in terms of reparations, why would we pay any reparations? I mean, I don't see why someone from African heritage would have any less opportunities in 2025 than a white English boy would. So why are you actually being paid the reparations? Because what are you losing out on in 2025? I never owned a slave. I know my dad didn't own a slave. My grandparents didn't. I mean, as far as I'm aware, most of our relatives, generational, going back to 300 years, were Welsh farmers. So where have we benefited from slavery? A lot of people will try and make you believe that the whole of the United Kingdom was built on slavery as well. Well, we didn't have slaves building our country in the 1800s. They were in the Caribbean islands or America, and some of the biggest slavers were Brazil. It was actually Portugal and Brazil that Portugal was sending over slaves to Brazil, and Brazil was
Well, I'm sure there are people who think we should be paying reparations to them as well, even though never had anything to do with Brazil.
well, we should
So
just
I'm
pay everyone
Well, I
everything.
think yes. I mean, clearly that we've just £100 million for condoms to Pakistan. I mean, I can't quite get my head around that. I mean, Pakistan's got nuclear warheads. It's got nuclear
Mm.
weapons. Why on earth are we transferring money from our country to a nuclear power? I mean, if they can
Well,
afford nuclear weapons,
there's
they can
residents
afford
in
condoms.
there's residents in Mauritius that don't have to pay income tax now because we're sending billions of pounds over to them, and we give them some nice little islands to boot as well. So I think it's just a running theme, isn't it, that the UK or mainly England is just awful, horrible. Throughout history, we've just raped and pillaged everybody. And we just need to pay everything back, just give everything to everyone. And I don't know, just all jump off a cliff. I don't think
Doesn't
everyone, and no one will be happy until every Englishman has literally just gone, "Do you know what? I'm gone. Just jump off a cliff, and
and
just be gone
England's
with you."
gone.
England's gone. I mean, it does feel like that sometimes. As an Englishman, you do feel like you are the villain in every story. You're like the main character villain. We're like Doctor No. We're the Doctor No of the world. And it's always the English
Unless
people that the bad guys in American films. Now that I
Well,
think about it, we're just
actually,
evil.
and there was that whole thing a while back about when they had the ads on the London Underground showing the predatory males who were all kind of young, well-dressed white men,
Yeah.
and then Sarah Poachin obviously made her comments about the number of people I can't remember the exact term that she used. I think she just said the number of black people in advertising, and she said, "Oh, I'm sick of seeing it," sort of thing. I think exceptionally clumsy language, but you do see so many people who are non-white on adverts. I mean, it seems like every family on an advert is mixed race. I mean, we've got a mixed race family, so we're not bothered. I don't care what race anybody is. But when you look at the TV, you would think there were no white people in this country. And there's all these lovely, mixed race children. They've all got the prettiest parts of being mixed race. But is that really reality for most people? So I think she was actually expressing a frustration around that. But you're right, being white, yes, you are, you're the villain. If you wear a St. George cross, you're a knuckle dragging gammon, aren't you? Or, if you want to support anything British. But do you think that idea of this whole thing about reparations and colonialism, do you think in part that has come along and those ideas have gained more widespread traction? Because are we not in our institutions we've just bred this wokeism, haven't we, in society that has come from our institutions? That seems to be, it's in schools, it's in our wonderful NHS. I mean, the BBC, I'm sure we're going to get onto that. But surely these are ideas. Fine, let's have ideas, let's have conversations. David Lammy wants to have a conversation around reparations. I mean, he'll have a conversation around anything that seems to mean that we send money somewhere.
He's the deputy prime minister. I mean, he's a walking example of how a black person can achieve anything. I mean, he's in the second highest post in the UK.
Exactly.
He's a black man and he is the deputy prime minister. So what is he saying? He needs reparations because he's been held back. What, from getting one of the most senior posts in the whole country? It just doesn't make any sense, does it? And a lot of white people are just sick of being vilified as just, racist and just historically disgusting people. There's a lot of different empires throughout history that did absolutely atrocious things. If you look at the history, I mean, I'm not a historian, but if you look, the Mongolian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, the Japanese, Chinese, they had a couple of nasty wars together where millions of people died. Are we just going to pay reparations for everything? Are we just going to keep doing this big washing machine of money where we all just keep giving money to each other to apologize? I mean, didn't Gandhi say, an eye for an eye leaves the world blind? I mean, you just can't apologize for who you are until the end of time. And I think as a white British, mainly man, that is all we are expected to do, is just hate ourselves, see ourselves as the villain, and just spend the rest of our existence apologizing for anything and everything that's ever happened in the world.
Do you think that's turning around though? Because I feel like the tide is to. Do you?
I think it's getting popular. Isn't it getting popular now to hate Britain? It's like becoming like, in the same way that it's fashionable to Palestine will be free kind of thing. It's the same thing to hate Britain, and just what's that thing? But if you hate
self-flagellation.
Self-flagellation, yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Do you know what I mean? It's like
flagellation.
Well, I thought there was a phrase called browbeating.
No, browbeating is what you do to somebody else, isn't it? Like when you beat them down. Stop browbeating me.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, we should do. Well, we have to do that as well to each other. We have to hate each other, hate ourselves, and self-flagellate at every opportunity.
Yes, but do you think you're just imagining that a little? I mean, come on, look at this whole raising the colours, the whole thing with the flags. I mean, yes, we know there are plenty of councils who, as fast as they're going up, are very, desperate to take them down. And, there's councils, and, I don't live in one, don't live in an area, don't think that's particularly pro-Palestine. I don't think there's a massive pro-Palestine movement where I live. Haven't seen any Palestine flags. They have them in Norwich occasionally.
I've got a billboard 2 minutes from my house that's got a massive Palestine flag on it. A billboard 2 minutes from my house. A billboard.
Where is the billboard?
It's not even a flag. It's a whole billboard
space?
with on the main road. On the junction 40.
House?
No, it's a billboard. An actual
rented
billboard. Well, this is my point. This is my point. It's crazy. A billboard of junction 40 on the M1. With a massive Palestine flag on it. So it's like, it's just very strange.
That's like saying, and we had this conversation before when we were talking about floods. So, I think this whole thing around reparations, and we're moving on from that topic, but we are getting a little bit into the whole, no, that's good. What I mean is we're taking that forward, but we're getting into the divide, this whole thing, the country's so divided, it's divisive. Well, yeah, it's divided between people who actually want to be British and are proud for Britain, are proud of Britain. They want to be British. They're proud proud of Britain, they're proud of British culture, they're proud of British values. And there's those people. And then there's the people, it seems, on the other side who, as you say, seem to hate Britain. And I put them in a camp of, many Labour politicians, but people who spend more time talking about Palestine and Gaza than they actually do in the neighborhoods where they actually live, spend more time jumping up and down screaming about trans rights than actually of women's rights, who are like, over 50% of the population. And you've just got this kind of weird group of people who subscribe to some concept of international law rather than our identity, our culture, and our history. And that should be the leading and the guiding force in everything in our country, from Parliament down to all of our institutions. That should be first and foremost. And we don't have a written constitution. Well, we do have a written constitution, but it's written in flexible instruments, if you like, such as acts of parliament and statutory instruments and, conventions and all those things. But ultimately, those institutions that feed into that have become infected by different types of ideology, and ideology that isn't British. And I think, you're in two camps. You're either British and you're proud to be British, or you're British and you're not proud to be British. In which case, literally, go and find another country that you're really proud of and go and live there and go and make that a success, and take all your ideals and take whatever culture you're inventing or what little history you want to cherry pick and go and take that there and go and build your own nation state. And I wish you well. I hope you'll be very happy and you can live under the Palestine flag or the Pride flag or whatever flag you want, quite frankly. But in Britain, I want to live under the British flag.
Well, yeah, and that's the problem as well. So if you're a non-white person who's born in Britain, surely you're living under the same benefits that were provided by whatever slavery provided for us as a white person is. So why would you get reparations?
But yeah, I mean, lots of non-white people agree with what you and I saying. You and I are saying, but there are a lot of non-white people who won't come out and say it because they're worried about the approbation of their neighbours, families, friends, and they don't really want to come out and say it. But they will say it to me in private. I just went and had an appointment a couple of days ago there were two women there, two medical women who are both second generation from India. And they were talking about it, and I was talking about some of the things that I think, and they're absolutely on the same page as me. And they're not interested in all the pro-Palestine rubbish. And actually, they think that we live in Britain and people should integrate, and that's the end of it, quite frankly. And their
Mm,
attitude is, well, if you don't want to do that, why on earth are you living here? Well, I'll tell you why people are living here, because they want all the benefits of all the freedom that a democratic country like Britain gives them. But they want that, and then they want to take it for themselves, and they want to shut everybody else down. So they want to use the freedom that we have in our democracy to actually silence the very people who support the unfettered freedom and democratic rights in the first place. And that's
mm.
just wrong.
Well, yeah, I suppose there's a lot of different angles, isn't there, to it all? But at the end of the day, to finish a finishing point, I think the reparations argument is mainly a just another opportunity to give money to someone else. It's a money making idea. I just can't see any reason to be paying compensation to people that haven't experienced that issue for over 200 years. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yes, it doesn't make any sense. And as a segue in terms of spending money that doesn't make any sense, what are your thoughts on the paper mile idea that's apparently is going to come in at the budget? Now, I'm not as critical as this idea personally as when I looked into it as I thought I might be. But have you heard about it? Do you know what's being proposed?
I've heard. So basically, they want to start charging paper mile for electric vehicles.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean,
it's on all vehicles.
isn't it? It's a bit of a roadback because I thought they were trying to convince people to buy electric. Electric was the way forward. It was going to be the cheapest way, even though people spent, I think, double the amount paying for these electric vehicles because they weren't going to have to pay road tax, which I just always thought was stupid anyway. Because isn't road tax used to maintain the freeways, the highways, the motorways, the potholes, making sure the roads are marked up and signed up correctly. So not paying road tax on an electric vehicle never made sense to me. It was unsustainable. But the fact that they're now going to I don't even know how they're going to do it. I mean, how are they going to do it? How's it achieved? Pay per mile? Do you have to have a GPS tracker? Do you have to have? Can I just wrap my car up in tin? I mean, I haven't got an electric car, thankfully, but can you just wrap your car up in tin foil and it doesn't know? You can't be tracked. How does it work? Is it cameras? How many billions are we going to spend to implement it, or trillions?
My understanding is, I think you're right, because there has been a huge loss of duty on fuel because of all the electric vehicles. So obviously, yeah, it was never sustainable, was it? So my understanding is that every year you'll fill in a form. So you'll pay your VED, your vehicle excise duty, which I think is £195 a year. So you'll pay that every year, and you will log and say how many miles you think you're going to do. And my understanding is you're going to have to pay 3p a mile. So if you expect that you'll do 10,000 miles a year, you'll pay £300. And obviously the criticism of that is, well, that's a big brother state, pence per mile is all very, the conspiracy theorists will all be saying that it's a Klaus Schwab, no brainer. It's a whole WEF thing. Will be social credit system, all of that. But ultimately, it makes complete sense. If you're not making money from fuel duty, if people are not putting fuel in their cars, then you have got to raise that revenue for the roads somewhere else. Actually, electric vehicles, aren't they heavier? So my understanding is that they actually produce more wear and tear per mile on the roads than what an ordinary in ICB and ICE, internal combustion engine, would do.
Wow.
But I think the problem is what they've identified, because of course these ideas come out and then people immediately say, well, this doesn't make sense because of whatever. So if you take your car abroad, there's no way of knowing that mileage didn't occur in the UK. So let's say I live in Northern Ireland and I travel over to Ireland every day for my commute. Well, sounds like I'm going to have to pay for the mileage that goes into Northern Ireland. If I like to go to the Calais Wine Superstore a few times a year, or go beyond there, or drive to the south of France or whatever, all of that mileage is now going to be captured on my odometer. So I'm going to have to pay for it, even though I wasn't actually driving in the UK. So I can't see any way around that.
You've just discovered the way that they're going to get us back into the EU. That's going to be their excuse now. We need to rejoin the EU to deal with this mileage issue. I mean, the problem is, it was kind of a carrot and stick thing, wasn't it? They told everyone to buy the electric vehicles because it was going to be a lot cheaper. So people went out and spent upwards of maybe £15,000 extra to get an electric vehicle based on the fact that they thought in the long term they were going to save money. But it was ridiculous to think that you could sustain people not paying tax on the fuel. So it was always, I don't want to call it a Ponzi scheme, call it one, but it was always kind of like a short-sighted vision, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
So anyone who's now bought an electric car thinking that they're going to save money has now kind of been backstabbed by the government. And this is exactly the kind of thing that she's going to bring in.
So do you think then, should they get rid of, I mean, I don't like the idea, as you know, I'm super, super small state lady. I don't like the idea of anything being tracked by the government. However, I do accept that the only way to charge people per mile is you've got to find a way of working out what the mileage is.
I actually have the answer. I do actually have the answer.
Oh, go on.
It's something no one's ever thought of. I've never heard this idea before. Basically, this is how we get around the whole thing of fuel duty, no issues, everything sorted till the end of time. So basically, Elon Musk, if you're watching this, this is my idea, okay? So basically what you do, when you buy what they do is they start making electric cars that have quick release batteries in them, like a DeWalt drill. where you get that lithium battery and you press the thing and you take
Yes.
it off and you replace it with a new battery.
Ryobi, other brands are
Ryobi,
available.
Makita, yeah. So what they do is, as they get rid of the petrol stations, they hollow them out. And instead of having petrol pumps, they have little rails that you drive over. And then when you buy the electric car, you don't actually own the battery. You just own the car. So when you go to the petrol station, you drive over the grid and you have two guys at the bottom. They don't fill your pump anymore. Basically, what they do is they have this little lift there. They go in, they detach the battery from the car, they put it in a charging rack, then they get a new battery that's charged up, and you put that into your car. They seal you back up quick, and you're on your way within 5 minutes. You're not sat in a charging bay for 20 minutes.
Right.
You're
So
just in
it's
there.
a Tesla
Now,
/ DeWalt /
yes.
pit stop.
So now, yeah, but the thing is, what happens is you pay every time you get your battery changed. You're paying for the maintenance of the battery, the electricity, and the labor costs of those guys doing it. So maybe you pay the same price as you would pay to fill up fuel. So people would accept, wouldn't they, £50 to refill to get 700 miles range out of their vehicle, because that's what it costs in fuel, depending what car you've got. So you'd pay 50 quid, you never own and that means that when batteries degrade, they could be recycled responsibly, looked after and maintained, and you can collect the tax. That for me is the no-brainer. You basically just turn cars into DeWalt batteries, basically, or Makita, or
right.
Ryobi.
So if that was left to the private sector, that would work quite quickly. But as soon as you get the government involved, it's just going to go wrong, isn't it?
The government can just take their tax. So every time a battery is replaced, there's a certain amount of tax that gets paid to the government, and that's something that they can change. Rachel Reeves can change that. They're going to say, we need to take £10 per battery change on a vehicle now. But what they could do is not manipulate the market.
Yeah, but that doesn't help you. Yeah, no, that's a stupid idea. No, because that's a good idea for no.
Whoa.
So that is in fact, that's a great idea for convenience of the driver. So you're not waiting around for your car to charge. And by the way, anybody watching or listening to this who claims they don't care when they have to sit and wait for their car to charge is talking a load of rubbish. Melody, you know who you are. I'm not buying it.
I love filling my big truck up and looking at the guys sitting in the electric aisle and just like, you know what I mean? I'll be done in about 1 minute, 45 seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and they all look peed off, all of them.
Melody always says to me, no, it's fine. You just get a coffee. No, she's lying. I can tell. Anyway, so, no, I think that's super convenient.
Let me quick fill up because I'm on empty. Fuel, 30 seconds. The other guy's like that on FaceTime in his car. You're right, love. I'm just filling the Tesla up. I'm on my way. Get out of it.
So I think the DeWalt battery idea is great from the user's perspective. Very good. But yeah, from a revenue raising perspective for tax revenue, well, what about people who charge at home? That doesn't make any sense then.
So what you're saying is you ban it. You can't fill up at home, Justine. Well, who's got a fuel pump at their house? Nobody.
Well, why have I got to be? No, now you're making me leave my property to go to a filling station to change my battery.
That's how it works now,
Why should I
Justine.
have to do that? No, it's not.
That's how it works now. No, but before we had this ridiculousness,
it's rubbish. It's awful.
It's not rubbish.
I hate it.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is you're going to have to now. Don't think that people aren't going to be able to hack these cars as well. You know, to bring down the mileage. I mean, it's all software driven now. It's not mechanical anymore. Your wheels turn and your mileage goes up on your odometer or whatever it's called. You literally just have a digital display. Odometer. Odometer. Odometer.
Isn't it an odometer?
I thought it was an odometer. ODO. I've never said the word. I just know how it's spelled, but I've never actually said the word. Odometer, then.
It's odometer.
Your dashboard, your clock.
The mileage counter, your clock,
the mileage thingy. So the mileage thingy is a digital display. I mean, people are hacking, someone hacked Barclays Bank, didn't they, last week?
People aren't going to start hacking their cars. That's silly. Right.
Change the batteries. It keeps the control. Rubbish. It keeps the control in-house. The batteries are maintained by the private companies and they pay their tax to the
But
government.
there's too
Everyone has
many
to do the same
private.
thing.
No, it's a good idea in theory, but it's not going to happen. There's too many private companies, and quite frankly, if I've got a niche car, they may only have a charging station in 10 miles away from me. Well, I'm not going to drive. I haven't got time to drive all the way down there and change a battery.
Maybe think about implementing the infrastructure before you change, the whole country's driving habits.
So, my question to you on that topic, though, just to finalise it, is it fair to charge people per mile? And if so, why don't we get rid of the £195 for everybody? And why don't you just pay per mile based on your car?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think fairness comes into it, Justine. I don't think fairness comes into it. I mean, nothing's fair anymore, is it? And anyone that thought paper mile wasn't coming in at some point has got half a brain. I mean, everyone knew
Well,
paper
yeah,
mile
but
was coming in.
fundamentally, do you not think, though, regardless of the whole Big Brother aspect of it, surely it's fairer, is it not? That the
No,
people who use the roads the most should pay more or
the
not?
problem is once the government gets that power, it'll be like what they do with beer and cigarettes. I mean, it's an easy tax then, isn't it, to raise just to generate more money to then squander it. You look at the price of beer in a pub now. I mean, look what they've done to the beer trade. They've absolutely, decimated it because it costs £6 for a pint of beer now because they just. And how much of a pint of beer is tax? I reckon it's about half of it is just tax on the beer. You can't even get a decent Stella anymore because they're lowering all the percentages because of the tax on high percentage alcohol. So it's. I just feel like once they get a hold of that power, it's going to be very easy to abuse it, is all I'm thinking. I don't think in principle it's a bad
Well, they're going
idea.
to do it anyway, but they're going to do it anyway. That's the point.
It's a tax on movement. What if I wanted to borrow someone's car and I said, look, I'll fill your tank up and I'll fill him up a tank of petrol and go out in his car. How's that going to work now then? Because I can't do that now. What if you lend your car to someone? Who's paying the bill then? How do you
Well, I
assess
guess
that?
you just got to. Well, you're just going to have to tell them they've got to give the 3p a mile. But I think a lot of people. I mean, I'll be with my car when they ask me. I'll be saying I'm going to do 1 mile next year, and I'll be paying them in arrears. But they'll probably do a thing where it costs more if you pay them in arrears, won't it?
Well, that's what I'm saying with this government. If you thought that it would be a fair system where everyone kind of paid the same and it would never get abused, you'd be up for it, wouldn't you? But you just can't trust the government to ever do the right thing. If they're not going to abuse the system, if they're going to keep their promises, have a system where they have a base rate and it only changes with inflation, for example, then I would be happy with that. But I don't trust them not to break the promises in the same way as Rachel Reeves is breaking her manifesto promise by the looks of it, where she's kind of softening us all up with that little speech she did the other week or last week.
That was Tuesday. What was the
Was it
point of that
Tuesday?
speech? It was Tuesday.
Oh, sorry. No, I don't know. What? You tell me what the point was, because I just heard. What did Kemi
I think
Badenoch
she's sick
call
of
it?
seeing Nigel Farage. She's sick of seeing Nigel Farage, and then he gives a press conference,
Waffle bomb.
and he gave his big press conference about what Reform are going to do around the economy when they're elected, and he gave a press conference. He was brilliant, by the way. I don't know if you saw it. It was
I
very,
did.
very
I
good.
watched it.
I mean, he just stands there for 45 minutes. He's got some notes and a marker pen, and bing, bada, boom, away he goes. And he does that because he actually knows what he's talking about. He knows his onions, he knows his stuff, and he believes what he's saying, and he doesn't waver from what he's saying. And then, of course, she suddenly had to come out and do a speech the next morning. And then didn't Kemi Badenoch do a speech
They're all
that
playing
lasted
catch up,
about
aren't they?
3 minutes?
They're all playing catch up.
So
But the thing is, it's like they're out of their league. It's like Nigel Farage has just got the drop on them all the time and they're just constantly playing catch up. But they're not doing their speeches based on any type of like ideology or what they believe in, because like you've said before, I don't think they believe in anything. They're just doing it purely because Nigel Farage has done it. But I did watch Nigel Farage's speech. And when he was talking, he very clearly outlined where he thought the issues were in the economy, and he very clearly outlined what his vision was, on how he would solve those issues, where he would take the money from, how he would make things fairer. And you got the impression that he actually had a vision, and whether that vision is going to work or not, we don't know. But he has got a vision, and you can tell he believes in what he's saying. But when Rachel Reeves was talking, she actually didn't. I couldn't hear that she actually made any points whatsoever. She talks in these kind of like very broad terms. We're going to have to make hard decisions. Well, that isn't a policy. Saying that we're all going to have to share the burden and make hard decisions. Making hard decisions isn't a policy. It's just something we do. And that's the difference between what Nigel Farage was saying in terms of,
Yes.
well, this is where I identify, for example, the financial sector. He was very clear. He was saying our biggest sector is the financial sector in London. He says we never talk about it. And it's caught up in bureaucracy
Oh,
and
we're
red tape.
embarrassed.
Yeah, but
We're ashamed. We're ashamed.
but
It's
he
probably
said
got some colonial thing going with it.
But he had a clear vision. He said, I'm going to undo this red tape. I'm going to get rid of all the bureaucracy, that surrounds this industry, and I want us to become a powerhouse again. And Rachel Reeves is just going, the Conservatives really bad. We really good. We good guys. Them bad guys. We all need to work together. But didn't actually say anything. Wasn't she going on for like 45 minutes? And no
It was
passion.
really
Same as Keir Starmer. Sorry to interrupt. Sorry, but it's the same with Keir Starmer. She was like a cyborg. It's like
yeah.
it's like it was a 12-year-old. That's how it comes across. It was like a 12-year-old that was doing her first speech, and the teacher's assignment was pretend that you are the chancellor, and I want you to write a speech about how you're going to change Britain. And this 12-year-old girl, we are all in this together, and don't forget, we are going to deal with this because Conservatives. It was just awful, wasn't it? And embarrassing.
Yes, and it was what was really, really intriguing was if you actually took the sound of her speech and the rhythm of that speech and all of it, and if you overlaid it over a Keir Starmer speech and got an AI voice to do the speech, it would have sounded exactly the same. If you'd taken her voice and AI'd it but turned it into Keir Starmer, it was like they'd had exactly the same speech coach for her to do this speech. And it was really bizarre because she just literally sounded like a female Keir Starmer. And he's terrible at giving speeches.
Do you remember when I was taking the mic last week when I was saying about Keir Starmer, and when he says these lines where he's trying to humanize himself and he goes, "Let me be clear," and he kind of leads in with that. I'm not messing about. Let me be clear.
Yes.
And she did exactly the same things. You're right. She sounded exactly. And why do they all sound like they've got blocked noses all the time? Why do they all sound like they've got nasal issues? So they can't even talk properly. But she literally, like I say,
don't get Ed Miliband, man.
Weird. It's like,
oh, Mr. Adenoids.
It's the same as Keir Starmer. You could have a cybernetic clone of her, and it would look more human and sound more human than she does. It's just very, very strange. But what did you pick up on anything she actually said of any merit, where she had a solid policy, other than just literally stroking you?
Yes, it's not about people with the broadest shoulders anymore. Now it's everybody. That's the message.
But what does that even mean? I mean,
this is the very woman who
richest...
clobbered all of the businesses last year. Why does she think that there's no confidence in the economy? Why are people who've got businesses not even trying? Why would you bother trying if there's no real reward at the end of it? Who bothers? Why do people bother?
Well, why don't we do this, Rachel Reeves? Why don't you just stop spending money? Just stop spending loads of money. Stop.
Exactly.
Stop.
Exactly.
I mean, isn't the interest on our national debt now more than the defence budget?
Yes.
Literally, and what we're doing, from what I hear...
Well, we're not defending ourselves, are we? But that's another conversation.
No, we haven't even got an army anymore. We've not even got an army. But
what
I'm saying is...
75,000 armed service personnel, haven't we? I think that's the number. Or that could just be the army.
Yes.
I feel like it's the whole of our military, 75,000 bods.
The problem is they tried to make changes to the welfare system, didn't they? and the backbenchers just basically said no. So again, they're just a toothless dog. I mean, they can't stop, they can't reform anything because the Labour Party is kind of like the Conservative Party was. It's split, isn't it? I mean, you've got people who are openly talking
Yes.
about dethroning Keir Starmer now. So they're going down exactly the same road as Conservatives went down, which is now, being a divide, parties within parties, just being totally divided. And that's the thing with reform. People go on about reform as a one-trick pony and that, it's all about Nigel Farage. Well, I don't see that as a negative. I see that as a positive because Nigel Farage is something that we haven't got and that what we need. He is a leader. He is a leader, and people say he's difficult. People do say sometimes he's difficult to work with. He's very, you do it my way or the highway. Well, sometimes that's what you need. This country is yearning for a leader, someone who's going to make tough decisions. Someone, I mean, we all had that, teacher in school that was a right hard ass and really strict, and would sometimes, a lot of the times, would tell you no or say you couldn't do things when you wanted to do it, and was very strict with you, but you respected them. And they're the kind of people you look back at and go, well, yeah, they were a bit of a hard ass, but I respect that person because at least they had conviction,
Yes.
and they forced you to. And that's how I see Nigel Farage.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
don't want him to flip flop. I don't want him to flip flop. I want him to do more of what he did the other day, which is have a vision and follow through on that vision. And I think if he just continues to do that, it'll be great.
And he has rowed back from those original promises, or what Reform UK call their contract, the manifesto from 2024, in terms of tax cuts. He actually rowed back from that, and I think that's acceptable. I mean, we're a few years out from a general
Yeah,
election,
but he's being honest, isn't
unfortunately.
he? That's what you
Yeah,
need, a
he's
bit of
being
honesty. He
honest.
basically says, look, we wanted to do this, but we're probably, if we're in power, we're going to inherit an absolute sack of
A
whatever. Do you know what I
mess.
mean?
Yeah.
But
Sack of spuds.
he's being upfront, but he's actually justifying the things that he's saying. He's saying, look, we need to get to where we want to get, but it
Yes.
may be so. I mean, even when he's saying the amount of people they can deport, he said we'll deport 600,000 people in 5 years. I don't think he said that's part of his speech, but as an indicator, a lot of
Yes.
people might think that's quite low. But some people might say, well, he's just being realistic. That's all we want, is someone who's open and honest about what
Yes.
they feel they can achieve, and someone that won't lie and roll back. I mean, if Rachel Reeves hires income tax, I genuinely think she's finished. I just don't see how she could justify a position
Well, it was
anymore
a
if she breaks
silly
that
promise to
manifesto
make.
pledge.
It was a silly promise to make to begin with, and if they'd had some smarts, there were lots of other things that they could have done, other than the breaking that promise. And I think ultimately it was a silly thing to do, to shoulder yourself with that level of manifesto promise. That the main headline taxes that working people pay, that they will never increase. I think that was a silly thing to do. But do you know what? Said it before, say it again. I'm happy to pay for high quality public services, but what I and millions of other people are not happy to do is that we are not happy to pay for government waste. And I am sick of public sector waste. And quite frankly, I see people on X and they say, oh, free meals for children. No, not free, taxpayer funded. Again, I would make the same point. I want people themselves to be wealthier so they can take care of themselves. And it seems like these socialist governments, what they want to do is tax you to the hilt and then force you to claw it back in some kind of social credit or grant funding or something all the time. Just let people keep their own money and look after themselves. Thanks very much.
Well,
And there
I
are
haven't got
people who
kids.
can't. Well,
Why am I paying
yeah,
for someone else's kids' school dinners?
well, because you want to live in a civil society, maybe is one reason why you might choose to do that. I mean, you don't have a choice to do
No.
it. But my argument would be, why are the parents of these children unable to feed them themselves? What is it in their financial situation that means they can't? Let's look at that. But we want an economy that can prosper for everybody. And the whole thing of, let's do a windfall tax, or let's do a wealth tax. Well, yeah, it's all very well until you run out of people to tax, because eventually the people who pay this tax will leave, or they will just find ways to squirrel their money into some kind of mechanism or vehicle, which means they don't pay tax. And I think, I'm happy to pay for public services when they're good, but And some public services are absolutely amazing. I mean, I nearly fell over the other day. I rang the Information Commissioner's office about something, and I got through to talk to a human, and he spoke to me for 40 minutes. And I feel like if I'd wanted to talk to him for 4 hours, he would have just carried on. That's probably a
That's
negative
because
in
you're the
some
only
ways.
person who knows that service exists. Anyone else
Maybe.
watching this wouldn't even know what it is. So the guy's probably
But
sat there all day just waiting for a phone call. So
waiting,
you've
he's
probably
waiting
you've
for me
probably
to
made his
call.
day.
Yeah. But I am not happy to pay for waste, and there's too much government waste, all the net zero stuff, all the international overseas aid, it's all getting filtered off, and it's all being used for things that ordinary British taxpayers, it's all being used for things that ordinary British taxpayers don't actually want to fund. And I think people have just had enough of the waste as much as anything else. So, yeah, you're right. She didn't come up with any solutions. Nigel, it did impress me at that press conference that he did. I was concerned about his comments on the two-child benefit cap. He's explained that now. He's expanded
He
his
clarified
arguments
it,
on
didn't he?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how that's going to work. And yeah, I get that. Why, I
And
don't
I
believe.
I understand that he based that on the cost of childcare. So what he's actually saying is we want to support people who are in work and enable them to stay in work by
Exactly.
helping them pay for the childcare so they can pay tax. I mean, again, it's a policy with an explanation
Yeah.
around it. It's not going, well, we're gonna abolish the two child benefit cap because it's not fair. You know what I mean? It's just I'm sick of hearing like stupid
Yeah.
statements like
Well,
that where
and
we've just got to do things out of fairness. Well, why can't there just be a rational explanation why you want to do X, Y, or Z?
Well, yeah, and actually, you want to make tax cuts or or government spending on areas of the economy that are going to benefit the most people, that are going to enable people to be productive. Because the more we can enable the productive people to be productive, the bigger our economy will be, and the more everybody will benefit. But quite frankly, when you've got all these people who are in the country, either non-British citizens who are claiming out of work benefits, people who came over to the UK who have come off the back of somebody else, people who are on visas who brought other people over and they're now claiming benefits. I mean,
The
the whole
Boris
thing.
wave.
The Boris ways of people. I mean, that is just completely and utterly crackers. And quite frankly, I'm funding it, and I don't want to fund it. I think it's morally objectionable
But you
that
want
I
me
should
to
have to
fund
fund it.
you want me to fund kids' meals, but you don't want to fund refugees' meals.
I don't understand what you mean by that.
I said that I don't want to pay for other children's school meals, and you said, well, if
Yes.
we want to live in a civil society, then we'll have to contribute. So you can't say that I've got to pay for some kid's meal at school, but you not pay for a refugee's meal.
Well, do you mean asylum seekers or refugees? Because they're actually two different things. But people who've entered the country illegally, for example, yes, they need to get a meal, but those people should never be allowed to stay here, and they should never be allowed to stay here and be claiming benefits. Why? They entered the country illegally. And of most of the people who came under the Boris wave, who were the workers in social care, nearly 60% of those people are claiming, their family members are claiming benefits. So all of
And
those of all of those
oh
people,
yeah, yeah, it's bonkers. It's
59% of
unsustainable,
that benefit bill went to the relatives of those people.
and
So
it's
go figure
exactly the
that.
same.
Why are we paying for that? Come
And
here
it's
and
exact.
work if you want to. If I want to go and live in Australia, well, I'm too old now. They wouldn't have me. If I want to go in Australia, live in Australia, I can't say, well, can I bring my auntie, my uncle, my brother, and Uncle Tom Cobley and all? They'd be like, well, no, you can come and work. And if that doesn't suit you, stay where you are. Thanks.
Well, yeah, and my prediction is the same thing as the electric car scenario. Every time people were pushed to buy electric cars, people with half a brain said, this is unsustainable and X, Y, and Z is going to happen. We all knew that paper mile was going to come in, is going to come in eventually. And it's the same thing with this, with the immigration. It's unsustainable to keep paying thousands of people not to work. And as you know, 600 people came in on dinghies yesterday. Each one of those people that comes in on a dinghy costs about 40,000-50,000 pound a year to the UK taxpayer in terms of hotels and, you know, food and phones and weekly payments. It is simply unsustainable. And if you've got half a brain, you know that it cannot keep going on forever. So it's the same thing as the electric car scenario. You know what's coming down the road. It's just no one wants to accept it.
Well, bankruptcy, I think, is what's coming down the road. I mean, I would like to, because we're coming to the end. So I'm going to have to give Shabana Mahmood some credit, because I don't know all of the detail of it, but I do know that she's clawed back £75 million of taxpayers' cash that was overpaid to third-party providers of accommodation and was sat there in their bank accounts. Civil servants knew it was there. It's all sat there in a ledger. And basically, the civil servants haven't gone to them and said, oh, by the way, do you think we might have this money back? We've overpaid you. Can we have it? So it's all sat on a balance sheet, and she has clawed that money back. So credit where credit is due. How she's going to claw back the billions of pounds that have ever been spent?
I was
Well,
going to
she
say,
isn't,
it's a drop
is
in the
she?
ocean, isn't it? It's a
Well,
drop in
yeah,
the ocean.
but it's a drop in the ocean, but it still means something. That is money. That's our money. That's my money. That's taxpayers' money. And I don't like this term all the time. You know, it's a drop in the ocean, because it's not, you know, well, how big is the ocean at the end of the day? Who's flipping feeding the ocean? Well, it's the taxpayers. And there's only so much ocean unless you start borrowing. And we know where all that has gone.
And the only way to generate money is to have motion in the ocean.
I guess that all that remains is just to say to anybody who's watching and listening, we really hope you enjoyed the show, and we look forward to seeing you next time. So if you did enjoy it, please subscribe to the show, so we do know that we are talking to somebody every week. And don't forget to share the show with your friends, and also to give us a little like if you enjoyed it. Thanks very much, and we will see you next time on The T Word.